In 1994, American authorities discovered something that seemed straight out of a science fiction movie. A 17-year-old teenager named David Hahn had built a functional nuclear reactor in his mother's backyard. The young man, who became known worldwide as the Radioactive Boy Scout, utilized common everyday household objects to achieve this impressive and terrifying feat. But what makes this story even more unbelievable is not just the reactor itself, but the sequence of negligence and the massive contamination it generated. It all started just outside of Detroit, Michigan, where David was born in 1976. His parents were General Motors employees during a massive industrial boom, but they divorced when he was still very young. The young man split his time living with his father and stepmother during the week and spending weekends at his biological mother Patty's house. The turning point in David's life happened when he was 10 years old, when his stepmother's father gave him a seemingly innocent gift, a book called The Golden Book of Chemistry Experiments. This manual ignited an uncontrollable obsession in the boy. Unlike other kids who played with mixtures of water and food coloring, David set up a real chemical laboratory in his bedroom at his father's house. He invested in legitimate beakers, test tubes, Bunsen burners, and entire collections of scientific encyclopedias. By 14, while his peers were making baking soda volcanoes, David managed to manufacture pure nitroglycerin. He was so obsessed that he performed tests on himself. On a Boy Scout camping trip, he showed up with a completely bright orange face after ingesting a massive dose of canthaxanthin, claiming he was testing methods for artificial tanning. On that same trip, he and some fellow scouts blew a hole in a tent by detonating a stockpile of magnesium he had brought along to create fireworks. Despite the frequent small explosions and strong chemical odors coming from David's room, his parents did not ban the experiments. They simply demanded that he transfer his entire apparatus to the basement, tired of seeing pockmarked walls and carpets destroyed by acids. This move ended up being the exact opposite of a punishment, as it gave the young man even more space, privacy, and time to feed his obsession. He started working several after-school jobs just to get money to buy chemical supplies. Shortly after, the laboratory had to change addresses again due to a serious accident. David tried to open a glass container holding red phosphorus using a screwdriver as a hammer. The jar exploded, badly injuring his hands and arms. Shards of glass punctured his eyes because he refused to wear safety goggles. After this scare, instead of having his materials confiscated, David simply transferred his operations to the potting shed in the backyard of his biological mother's house. In the new space, David spent countless hours isolated. Both his mother and her boyfriend did not interfere, in awe of the young man's focus and dedication. Noticing his son's energy, his father suggested that he direct this effort toward becoming an Eagle Scout, the organization's highest honor. To achieve this title, the young man needed to earn 21 merit badges. Among the available choices, he opted for the Atomic Energy Merit Badge, becoming the only scout in that troop's history to show interest in the field. To earn the medal, David put together an information pamphlet on the importance of nuclear energy with the help of local utility companies, drew nuclear fission charts, and built an innocent toy model of a reactor using juice cans, straws, coat hangers, and rubber bands. He was awarded his official badge in May 1991, but that toy model was not enough to satisfy his curiosity. David decided he was going to build a real nuclear reactor, capable of generating actual radioactivity, inside that wooden shed in the backyard. His goal was to create a breeder reactor, an advanced model that not only generates power but also continuously creates its own new fuel in a self-sustaining cycle. To acquire the necessary materials without raising suspicions, the young man adopted a simple strategy. He began making phone calls and writing letters to official bodies, like the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, pretending to be a university physics professor. Surprisingly, nobody double-checked his credentials. Over the phone, government agency reps walked David through the entire process, step by step, of isolating and extracting radioactive isotopes from commercial products. Armed with these instructions, he discovered that small amounts of dangerous elements could be extracted from smoke detectors, old luminous clocks that glowed in the dark, and camping lanterns. David called up a smoke detector company claiming he needed 100 smoke detectors for a school project. The company sold the devices for a low price and even told him exactly where the radioactive material, americium-241, was located inside the device. The young man extracted the component from all the devices, welded the pieces together, and placed it inside a lead casing with a small hole punctured in it, creating a tool known in physics as a neutron gun. Next, he bought thousands of old camping lanterns to extract thorium from their mantles, procured old luminescent clocks from antique stores to scrape radium from their paint, and even ordered crude uranium from the former Czechoslovakia over the phone. He also obtained barium sulfate by talking to nurses in the radiology ward of a local hospital, who simply handed the material over to him. With all these elements gathered, David assembled the reactor core by combining the radium and americium. He surrounded this radioactive ball with a blanket composed of tiny foil-wrapped cubes of thorium ash and uranium powder, alternating the layers with carbon cubes and tenuously holding it all together with common duct tape. Without any adult around asking questions, the young man activated a highly dangerous homemade nuclear reactor. Because David did not use any proper safety protocols, radiation levels in the shed began to rise uncontrollably. Shortly after, the young man began to detect dangerous radiation 5 houses away from his mother's backyard. Frightened by his own experiment, he decided to dismantle the structure in the dead of night to try to spread out the components and reduce the concentration of energy. In the early hours of August 31, 1994, around 2 in the morning, neighbors called the police suspecting that David was trying to steal tires from cars. In reality, he was just loading the dismantled nuclear reactor into the trunk of his vehicle. When searching the car, the police received a warning from the young man himself, who stated that the material inside was radioactive. The bomb squad was called in, and although they found it was not a military weapon, the meters registered radiation levels 1,000 times higher than the natural environment limit. This catch automatically triggered the Federal Radiological Emergency Response Plan. Despite the severity of the situation, the government bureaucracy took nearly 2 months to take any real action. At the time of his arrest, David omitted the existence of the shed in the backyard, and no authority went to inspect the site immediately. When they finally discovered the homemade laboratory, the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, only took over the cleanup months later, in January of the following year. The agency's official memo noted that the lab presented an imminent and substantial endangerment to public health, local residents, and the environment. They warned that heavy winds or rain could cause the contaminants to migrate into the food chain. What authorities did not know at the time was that during those months of abandonment, David's mother, fearful of further investigations, had collected a large portion of the radioactive materials from the shed and thrown them directly into the regular household trash. This spread the contamination to the city's collectors and landfills, exposing countless more people to unseen hazards. The final decontamination operation took place in June 1995. Specialized technicians completely dismantled the wooden potting shed, sealed the debris into safety containers. They transported them to a radioactive waste dump in the middle of the Great Salt Lake Desert, where the homemade reactor remains entombed to this day alongside debris from governmental atomic bomb research. In 1995, the government arranged for the young man to have a detailed medical examination to evaluate the damage done to his body, but David refused the tests, fearful of what he might learn. David Hahn passed away in 2016 at the age of 39 from alcohol poisoning. The story of the Radioactive Boy Scout leaves a sobering reflection on the fragility of safety systems, and how easily curiosity can turn into disaster if nobody is paying attention.